Anne of Green Gables by Maud Montgomery. Chapter 1. Anne arrives in Avonlea. One fine spring afternoon in Avonlea, Mrs. Rachel Lynde sat by her kitchen window. She often sat there because she could see the Avonlea road very well from there. A man with a horse and buggy came up the road. It was Mrs. Lynde's neighbor, Matthew Cuthbert. "Where's Matthew going?" thought Mrs. Lynde in surprise. "It's 3:30 in the afternoon, and he has a lot of work on his farm. Where's he going? And why is he going there?" Matthew Cuthbert lived with his sister, Marilla, in Green Gables, a large old house near Mrs. Lynde's home. Later, Mrs. Lynde walked to Green Gables. Marilla Cuthbert was busy in the kitchen. She was a tall, thin woman with gray hair. Marilla wasn't young or pretty, and she didn't smile very much. But she had a kind heart. She wasn't surprised by Mrs. Lynde's visit. "Hello, Marilla," said Mrs. Lynde. "I saw Matthew on the road. Where is he going?" "To Bright River Station," answered Marilla. "We're getting a little boy from an orphanage in Nova Scotia. He's coming on the train this afternoon." Mrs. Lynde couldn't speak. Then she said, "An orphan boy? Why do you want an orphan boy?" "Matthew is 60 years old," answered Marilla. "His heart isn't very strong. He wants a boy to help him on the farm. We heard about Mrs. Spencer at White Sands. She's getting a little girl from the orphanage. Matthew and I want a little boy. Mrs. Spencer went to the orphanage today. She's bringing a boy back on the train, and she's going to leave him at the station. Matthew will meet him there." "I think you're doing a very stupid thing, Marilla," said Mrs. Lynde. "You're bringing a strange boy into your house. You don't know anything about him. I read a story in the newspaper about an orphan. This child lived with a Canadian family. The child lit a fire one night, and the family died in the fire. But it was a girl, not a boy." "But we're not getting a girl," said Marilla. "We don't want a girl. We're getting a boy." Bright River Station was about 12 kilometers from Avonlea. Matthew drove there slowly in the buggy. When he arrived at Bright River, it was late. He couldn't see a train. There was only one person at the station, a little girl about 11 years old. She was very thin, with large gray eyes and long red hair. She wore a short, ugly dress and carried an old bag. When she saw Matthew, she smiled. Then she put out her hand. "Are you Mr. Matthew Cuthbert of Green Gables?" she asked. "I'm from the orphanage. Mrs. Spencer brought me here." Matthew took the child's hand. "There's a mistake," he thought. "This is a girl, not a boy." "When you weren't here at the station," said the child, "I thought, I can sleep in that big tree tonight. I know he'll come in the morning. I know it's a long way to your house. Mrs. Spencer told me. But I love driving, and I'm going to have a home with you. That's wonderful. I never had a home." I was late, said Matthew slowly. I'm sorry. He took the little girl's bag, and they walked to the buggy. I can't leave this child at the station, he thought. I'll take her back to Green Gables. Marilla can tell her about the mistake. The girl got into the buggy, and Matthew drove home. The child talked and talked. Matthew listened. He was a quiet man, and he was usually afraid of little girls. But he liked listening to this girl's conversation. "Look at those trees with the beautiful white flowers," said the girl. "I love the color white. I'd like a beautiful white dress. I never had a pretty dress. They only gave us ugly clothes at the orphanage. I know I'm going to be very happy with you. But one thing makes me sad. Look at my hair. What color is it?" "Isn't it red?" asked Matthew. "Yes," said the little girl sadly. "It's red. I hate my red hair." It was evening when they arrived at Green Gables. Marilla came to the door and looked at the child in surprise. "Who's this, Matthew?" she asked. "Where's the boy?" "There wasn't a boy," said Matthew unhappily. "There was only her. I couldn't leave her at the station." "No boy?" said Marilla. "But we asked Mrs. Spencer for a boy." "You don't want me," cried the child suddenly. "You don't want me because I'm not a boy. Oh, what shall I do?" "Don't cry," said Marilla. "We can't send you back to the orphanage tonight. You'll have to stay here. What's your name?" The child stopped crying. "Can you call me Cordelia?" she asked. "Cordelia? Is that your name?" asked Marilla in surprise. "No," said the child sadly. "But Cordelia is a prettier name than mine. My name is Anne Shirley. Anne with an E. But please call me Cordelia." "No," said Marilla, but she smiled. "Anne is a very good name. Now come and eat something, Anne." Anne sat down at the table, but she couldn't eat anything. So Marilla took her upstairs to a small bedroom. Anne took off her clothes and got sadly into bed. Marilla went downstairs and washed the plates. Matthew sat in a chair. He didn't say very much. "I'll drive to Mrs. Spencer's house tomorrow," said Marilla, "and I'll ask her about this mistake. We'll have to send this child back." "She's a very nice little girl," said Matthew slowly, "and very interesting. She likes to talk, and she wants to stay with us." Marilla was very surprised. "But Matthew, she can't stay here," she said. "A girl can't help you on the farm." "But maybe we can help her," answered Matthew quietly. "I'm going to send her back to the orphanage," said Marilla. "I don't want an orphan girl." "All right, Marilla," said Matthew. "I'm going to bed now." Marilla put the plates away and went to bed too. And in the room upstairs, the little orphan girl cried and cried. Chapter 2. A Sad Story. When Anne woke up the next morning, she felt happy. She jumped out of bed and ran to the window. It was a beautiful morning. The sun shone and the sky was blue. Anne opened the window. Outside there was a fruit tree with beautiful flowers. Anne could see many other trees and flowers, and a small river, too. "This is a wonderful place," she thought. Then suddenly she remembered. She felt very sad again. "But I can't stay here," she thought. "They don't want me because I'm not a boy." Marilla came into the room. "Good morning, Anne," she said. "Breakfast is waiting. Wash your face and put on your clothes." "I'm feeling very hungry," Anne said. "I can never be sad in the mornings. I love mornings." After breakfast, Anne washed the plates and cups. Marilla watched carefully, but Anne did the job well. "This afternoon I'm going to drive to White Sands," Marilla said. "You'll come with me, Anne, and we'll talk to Mrs. Spencer." Matthew didn't say anything, but he looked very sad. Later he got the horse and buggy ready for Marilla. Marilla drove, and Anne sat next to her. "Is it a long way to White Sands?" asked Anne. "About 8 kilometers," answered Marilla. "I know you like to talk, Anne. So tell me your story." "It isn't very interesting," said Anne. "I was born in Bolingbroke in Nova Scotia, and I was 11 last March. My parents were teachers, but they died when I was a baby, so their cleaner, Mrs. Thomas, and her husband took me into their house. Mrs. Thomas had 4 children. I helped her with them, but then Mr. Thomas died in an accident. Mrs. Thomas and the children went to Mr. Thomas's parents. They didn't want me. Then Mrs. Hammond, Mrs. Thomas's friend, took me into her house. She had 8 children. They were very hard work. Then Mrs. Hammond moved away. I had to go to the orphanage because nobody wanted me. I was there for 4 months. "Did you go to school?" asked Marilla. "No, not often," answered Anne. "I didn't have time. I was always busy with the children. But I like reading very much." "Were these women, Mrs. Thomas and Mrs. Hammond, kind to you?" asked Marilla. "They wanted to be kind," Anne said slowly, "but they were always very tired. They couldn't really be kind to me." Marilla suddenly felt very sorry for Anne. The little girl's life was very sad. Nobody wanted her or loved her. When Mrs. Spencer saw Marilla and Anne, she was very surprised. Marilla told her about the problem. "I'm very sorry," answered Mrs. Spencer. "I made a mistake. But I have an idea. My neighbor, Mrs. Blewett, has a new baby. She wants a girl to help her. Anne can go and live with her." "Oh," said Marilla. She knew about Mrs. Blewett. Mrs. Blewett had a lot of children, but she wasn't very kind to them. "Look," said Mrs. Spencer. "Here's Mrs. Blewett now." Mrs. Blewett had small, cold eyes. "This is Marilla Cuthbert from Green Gables," Mrs. Spencer told her. "And this little girl is from the orphanage. I brought her for Marilla, but Marilla wants a boy. Would you like her?" Mrs. Blewett looked at Anne for a long time. She didn't smile. "She's very thin," she said. "I hope she's strong. She'll have to work hard." "Yes, Mrs. Spencer. I'll take this girl. She can come home with me now." Marilla looked at Anne's unhappy face. "I can't give Anne to Mrs. Blewett," she thought. "Wait," she said. "First I have to discuss things with my brother, Matthew. He wants Anne to stay with us." Anne looked at Marilla in surprise. Then she jumped up and ran across the room. "Can I really stay with you at Green Gables?" she asked. "Did you really say that?" "I don't know," said Marilla. "Now sit down and be quiet." When Marilla and Anne arrived at Green Gables, Matthew met them. He was very happy when he saw Anne. Later, Marilla told him about Mrs. Blewett. She told him Anne's story, too. Matthew wasn't usually angry, but he was very angry about Mrs. Blewett. "That Blewett woman is very unkind," he said. "I know," said Marilla. "I don't like her. All right, Matthew. Anne can stay here with us. But I don't know very much about children. I hope I don't make any mistakes with her." "Thank you, Marilla," said Matthew happily. "Anne's a very interesting little girl. Be good to her. Then she'll always love you." Chapter 3. Red Hair. Next day, Marilla didn't tell Anne about her conversation with Matthew. She gave Anne a lot of work in the kitchen. "Marilla," said Anne excitedly, "I have to know about my future. Please tell me. Are you going to send me away?" "No," said Marilla. "You can stay at Green Gables with Matthew and me, but you have to be good." Anne started to cry. "Why are you crying?" asked Marilla in surprise. "Don't you want to stay with us? Don't you like Green Gables?" "Oh, yes, Marilla," cried Anne. "I like it very much. I'm crying because I'm very happy. And I'll always be good." Some days later, Mrs. Lynde came to tea with Marilla. When she arrived, Anne was outside. Marilla and Mrs. Lynde sat in the kitchen and talked. "I think you're making a mistake," said Mrs. Lynde. "You don't know anything about children." "No, but I can learn," said Marilla. Anne ran into the kitchen. She saw Mrs. Lynde and stopped. "The Cuthberts didn't take you for your pretty face," Mrs. Lynde said. "She's very thin, Marilla, and her hair is as red as carrots. Come here, child. I want to see you." Anne ran across the kitchen and stood in front of Mrs. Lynde. Her face was red and angry. "I hate you!" she cried. "I hate you! I hate you!" "Anne!" cried Marilla. "You're a very rude woman," Anne told Mrs. Lynde. "And you're fat." "Anne, go to your room," said Marilla. "Wait for me there." Anne started to cry. Then she ran upstairs. Mrs. Lynde got up from her chair. "I'm going home now, Marilla," she said. "That child is very wild. You'll have a lot of problems with her." "But you said unkind things about her," said Marilla. After Mrs. Lynde went home, Marilla went upstairs. Why did Anne say those things? She thought unhappily. Now Mrs. Lynde will tell everybody in Avonlea about her. "Stop crying and listen to me, Anne," she said. "You were very rude to Mrs. Lynde. She was a visitor in my home."
"But she was very unkind," said Anne.
"I want you to say sorry to Mrs. Lynde," said Marilla.
"Never," said Anne. "I'm not sorry."
Marilla remembered something. When she was a child, her aunts often talked about her. "Marilla isn't a very pretty little girl," they said. "Maybe Mrs. Lynde was unkind," said Marilla quietly, "but you have to say sorry. Stay here in your room." Next morning, Anne didn't come down to breakfast. Marilla told Matthew the story. "She was very rude," she said. "But Marilla," said Matthew, "Mrs. Lynde doesn't think before she speaks. Please don't be angry with Anne." Anne stayed in her room all day. Marilla took food upstairs, but Anne didn't eat very much. In the evening, Matthew went quietly up to Anne's room. Anne was on a chair by the window. She looked very small and unhappy. Matthew felt very sorry for her. He closed the door. "Please go and say sorry to Mrs. Lynde, Anne," he said.
"All right, Matthew," said Anne. "I wasn't sorry yesterday, but I'm sorry now. I'll do it because you asked me."
"Good," said Matthew happily. "It's very quiet downstairs without you, Anne." He went quietly out of the room. Later, Marilla and Anne walked to Mrs. Lynde's house.
"I'm very, very sorry, Mrs. Lynde," said Anne. "I was very rude to you. You were right about my red hair, and I am thin and ugly."
Mrs. Lynde smiled. "I was rude to you, too," she said. "You do have red hair, but maybe it will change color when you're older."
"That's very kind of you, Mrs. Lynde," said Anne. "Now I can hope for prettier hair. Please, can I go outside and play?"
"Yes, of course," said Mrs. Lynde. "Find some flowers." Anne went out and closed the door behind her. "Anne is really sorry," thought Marilla. "But she's funny, too." "She's a strange little girl," said Mrs. Lynde to Marilla. "But she isn't a bad child. I like her." On the way home, Anne suddenly put her small hand into Marilla's hand.
"I love Green Gables, Marilla," she said. "It's my home now."
Chapter 4. The Party. Anne had only one ugly dress from the orphanage, so Marilla made her 3 new dresses. She bought a little hat for Anne, too. But Anne didn't like the new clothes. "Why don't you like them, Anne?" asked Marilla.
They're not pretty," answered Anne.
"But they're very good dresses," said Marilla. Marilla went to church every Sunday. She wanted to take Anne with her, but the next Sunday Marilla was sick. "Can you go to church without me?" she asked Anne.
"Yes, of course, Marilla," answered Anne.
She put on one of her new dresses and her hat and started walking down the road to church.
"I don't like this hat," she thought. "It isn't very pretty."
Then she had an idea. There were a lot of beautiful yellow flowers by the road. Anne put some flowers on her hat. When she arrived at church, the other children looked at her.
"That girl's crazy," they said.
After church, Anne ran back to Green Gables. "Did you enjoy it, Anne?" asked Marilla.
"Not very much," said Anne. "The minister talked for a long time, but he wasn't very interesting. But there's going to be a party next week for the children of Avonlea. That's exciting. Please, Marilla, can I go too?"
"Yes, of course," answered Marilla.
"Oh, thank you, Marilla," said Anne.
She put her arms around Marilla. Marilla felt happy. "I'm starting to love this child," she thought. Marilla had a beautiful old brooch. The day before the party, she couldn't find it. "It was on top of the desk in my room," she thought. "But now it isn't there. Where is it?" "Did you take my brooch out of my room?" she asked Anne.
"No, Marilla," said Anne. "I went into your room last week. I saw the brooch on top of the desk and put it on my dress. But then I put it back on the desk. I didn't take it out of your room."
Marilla looked for the brooch again, but she couldn't find it. "Anne," she said, "I'll ask you again. Did you take the brooch from my room and lose it?"
"No, I didn't, Marilla," said Anne quietly.
"Go to your room and stay there," said Marilla. Anne went to her room. Later, Marilla went to see her.
"Marilla, the party is tomorrow," Anne said. "Please, can I go?"
"No," said Marilla angrily. "Tell me about the brooch first."
"But I told you about the brooch, Marilla," cried Anne.
Next morning, Marilla took Anne's breakfast upstairs. Anne sat on her bed. Her face was white, and her big gray eyes shone.
"I'll tell you about the brooch now," she said quietly. "I took it and I put it on my dress. Then I went outside and walked down the road to the bridge. I wanted to look at the brooch again, so I took it off my dress. It shone in the sun and was very beautiful. But then it fell from my hand, down, down to the bottom of the river."
"You're a very bad girl, Anne," Marilla said angrily.
"I'm sorry," said Anne. "Please, can I go to the party now?"
"The party?" cried Marilla. "Of course you can't go."
"But Marilla," said Anne, "you wanted to know about the brooch, so I told you. Now please, can I go to the party?"
"No," said Marilla, and went out. Anne fell on her bed and began to cry. Marilla went downstairs with a very sad heart. Maybe Mrs. Lynde was right about Anne, she thought. After lunch, Marilla wanted to go for a walk. She took her coat from the closet. Then she saw something on her coat. It was her beautiful brooch. "What's this?" thought Marilla in surprise. "Oh, I remember now. I put the brooch on this coat." She went to Anne's room. "Anne, why did you tell me that story this morning?" she said. "The brooch is here on my coat."
"I wanted to go to the party," said Anne sadly. "You wanted me to tell you about the brooch, so I had to think of a story."
Marilla began to laugh. "I'm sorry, Anne," she said. "I made a mistake. Now get ready for the party."
"Oh, Marilla," cried Anne, "isn't it too late?"
"No," answered Marilla. "It's only 2 o'clock. Wash your face and put on one of your new dresses. I'll give you some food for the party." When Anne came home that evening, she was very happy.
"Oh, Marilla, the party was wonderful,"
she said.